Hey, what's going on YouTube? Chopseller here, and I wanted to do a build and review video just to really go over every single detail about the build that I used to recently complete Dragon Age Origins on Nightmare difficulty just for the walkthrough. It's honestly been one of probably the most fun I've had in a playthrough because I really did get the best of both worlds. I was still able to be a caster, but I was able to don heavy armor. I run in there with a sword and just kind of mess stuff up. So I just want to make sure that I'm transparent with my build, just because how successful we were. In case you want to emulate that or just like try to replicate, something similar. So let's just talk about equipment first, though. I use Spellweaver. That's a really good weapon in my opinion for an Arcane Warrior, just for the +5 magic and +2 mana regen in combat. It does give you 2 runes, so I just decided to put down the electricity and cold rune just for more damage. The only way that we're going to pump out damage with this weapon is just through auto attacks, and that's any of the elemental bonuses that you give to a weapon. That's the only time those elemental bonuses are actually going to be applied, is during an auto attack. So that's why we want to have that on there. House Shield, I just like this for the more defense, despite the cut to 2 willpower, so we will have at least 10 mana less. It does give us more defense. That's just honestly why I like this, in addition to fire and cold resistances. So if we can try to bump up as much of our defense as possible, we'll have a higher chance to dodge attacks, just completely negating any kind of incoming damage, which is great. Armor, I use Helm of Hanleaf because it does give us the +2 to all attributes. I think that's pretty good, in addition to +3 armor. The +2 attributes will help us negate that cut that we got from House Shield, so that's great. And the +3 armor, just trying to boost up our armor rating as high as possible, just in case that we don't dodge an attack. Our armor rating is going to be pretty high, so we at least can negate like or try to mitigate as much of the incoming damage as possible. So I do like using Wade Superior Dragonbone plate set. That's my favorite. As well as you get more stamina regen or mana regen in combat, +25 stamina mana. That's great. And as a set together, I believe you get +5 defense and -20 or 25% fatigue. So it's a pretty good set in my opinion, as well as I just like the way it looks. Accessories, I use the Sash of Forbidden Secrets. I get this from the Golems of Amgarok, the DLC. I think you have to get one of the achievements in there, and then this item is just going to be automatically placed in your inventory when you start a new game. More willpower, spell power, improves blood magic, which that's great. That's exactly what we're using. And +15 mental resistance. So it's going to make us a little bit more resistant. It's going to give us more combat damage because of our spell power, in addition to having +6 willpower, so more mana in the bank, which is great. Life Drinker, +4 spell power. That's just good for an Arcane Warrior. And then Life Giver, +3 armor, +10 constitution. That's great. And Keyed City for just basically all +2 to all attributes, +4% spell resistance. And I'm not quite sure about the healing percent, like the bonus to it. I think that's bugged. So, but all right, that's my equipment. In terms of just my attributes, let's quickly go over that. My magic, it's at 80 and +9 passive to it. In order to be an effective Arcane Warrior for at least a melee, I would encourage you just to dump a shit ton of points into magic. As you see, I got it up to 80. Just as an Arcane Warrior, you're able to use your magic stat in replace of a strength requirement, so that way you can wear heavy armor, you can use melee weapons and such. In addition to, you can now use your spell power to directly contribute to combat damage. So magic directly contributes to your spell power. That's why you want to bump up magic, as high as you can. So that way, not only can you wear heavier armor, but also you can in turn use that spell power to affect how hard you're going to hit with your melee attacks. Constitution, I got it up to 18 base, and then I got 16 bonus passive points to it. I think that's probably good enough, just because we do want to have at least a decent amount of health, because we are a blood mage. We will be using, really, anytime we want to cast a spell, we're going to be doing it while we have blood magic activated. And then willpower, I have it at 25 and 8 bonuses to it, passive bonuses to it, excuse me. I wanted to have a decent amount of willpower just because we do have a lot of sustained abilities on. Arcane Shield, Combat Magic, Rock Armor, Spell Wisp, Shimmering Shield. That's not ours. That's not ours. And that's not ours. All right, so it looks like we have what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5 sustained abilities on, all which cost a certain amount of like your reserved mana, in addition to increasing our fatigue. So we won't have that much left. Otherwise, if we didn't put, we wouldn't have any leftover mana if we didn't put any other points in the willpower. So I don't know. 33 seemed to be about good enough, at least for me. But 25 base is what I went for. And for strength and dex, don't worry about these at all. I've heard, or I've read on some of the posts in the community of people advising each other to put points in strength and dex, and then some in magic, to make a strong melee-based arcane warrior. But I really would just encourage you, just negate strength and dexterity, just put all your points in terms of magic, once you're comfortable where you're at for constitution and willpower. But only other one would be cunning. I got it up to 17 base and plus 4 to it. You really only need 16 just for the coercion line in the skills, which I'll review next. But for resistances, my build had 100 mental resistance. I had 98 physical resistance. And then the resistances to all the different elemental was 75%, and I'm getting that, I believe, from Shimmering Shield. 285 health, 185 stamina, 64 armor rating, 141 defense. Keep in mind, this is also, I'm getting a bonus, I think, from Rally, from Alistair, so it's probably around 131 by myself. Spell power is 106, my damage is 130.7, but my fatigue is incredibly high at 98.5%. Jeez. Skills, I went with a coercion line, so you need minimum of 16 cunning. I just did that for my playthrough. I don't know, just for role-playing kind of purposes and enjoying the playthrough, I always go with that. And then I did put points into Master Survival, just because you get a bonus to nature and physical resistance when you max it out. I just think that's good. Being a mage, you always start with herbalism. I don't know. It's a good skill to have. I just decided not to go with it. I have combat training, the first one on there. If you want, you could definitely take off points from the survival line and put them into combat training. Just because at the last line it says here, the character is highly experienced in combat and gains small bonuses to armor and attack. So that would be good, definitely, for an arcane warrior. But I don't know. I didn't want to do that. Or actually, I don't even know if I knew about that at the time. I didn't want to put any points into here because it was just at this, when I started, I was like, screw it. I'm going to be a melee mage. This isn't going to impact me, but it totally will. So, if anything, learn from this build video in review. Don't put points in survival. Go ahead and put points into master combat training. If you're going to be a melee arcane warrior or just a melee mage. Spells, I max out the mage line, master combat, or arcane mastery, excuse me, just gives me a permanent bonus to spell power. I did max out all the arcane warrior. I have both the sustained on at all times, combat magic and shimmering shield. Aura of Might and Fade Shroud just grant you bonuses to attack, defense, and stamina, mana regen when combat magic is active. Blood magic, I only put 3 points into it. Don't worry about blood control. Blood Wound is my favorite ability. Area effect, crowd control. It's great, and damage over time. These two have been okay. Bloody Grasp, not so much, but I have been using Dark Sustenance. You don't have to have blood magic activated to use this. This is from the Warden Keep DLC. You'll use this, you'll sacrifice a little bit of health, but you will get a lot of mana back. That's great, especially just in case you are running low on mana. You can hit this and regen a decent amount at a small cost of your health. Rock Armor just gives you a bonus to armor. I went with Cone of Cold and Shock along with Heal. I did pick up all the glyphs. They have been awesome to use. I really just started using Glyph of Warding. You could just put that down on yourself and you get a big bonus to defense. Glyph of Repulsion, that's good too. You can just kind of shoot people back or put it at like a choke point. You could also do like putting down a glyph of paralysis followed by a glyph of repulsion on it, and it does like a burst stasis. Like that's the effect of it. So you could do that as a combo, as well as glyph of neutralization. You'll put that down on a spellcaster. Their mana will be completely drained. They can't do any abilities. If they had sustained abilities on, they'll all be taken off, and they can't regenerate any mana. It's really great if you just want to put it down and neutralize a mage in the meantime. Maybe if you don't have like mana clash, or you can't take them out like ASAP, so at least this negates them from being effective. Spell Wisp, I just get more spell power. That's good. I had all the hexes on, so that way at least I could put the hex on the enemy, and then especially with this, like a death hex, every time they take a hit, it's going to be a crit, and I figured I wanted to try to pump out as much damage as I could as possible on an enemy. Misdirection hex, that's a good one as well. So anytime you put that on an enemy, they have to score a critical hit to actually land a normal hit on you. And drain life just in case I needed it. Weakness, I was working my way up to miasma eventually. But that's the spells, that's the skills, that's the armor and everything else, attributes. That was pretty straightforward, I think, but let me go over last. I do have my tactics, so I just put on all the sustained ons, and then enemy nearest visible, I would just tell them to attack, just because I didn't want to have any other tactics saying like, oh, if you see this enemy use this spell, I didn't want to drain any of my mana like that. And I don't know, I always am in control of my character, so I figured I could keep my tactics at like a base, like bare bones kind of thing. And obviously if your health gets low enough, just heal yourself. But I wanted to keep using the blood magic off. I wanted to make sure I'm the one controlling that. But I usually would always take a soldier with me, like a warrior, so low gain. He is my tank currently, but I took Alistair with me all the time. Win, Grandma, I took her all the time with me. And I had haste on here. Haste is great. It's something that I would encourage you to think about if you're going to emulate this type of build, just because haste, it's a sustained, but now everybody's going to move faster. The move faster, your attack speed is faster, which is great. So then, man, you're just going to pump out a lot of damage, especially as a melee character like this. But it's, this has been like a go-to. I basically became like a weed whacker. I destroyed everything in my path when Win had this on. But that's pretty much it. Only other one, I always brought Leliana with me, just because the Song of Courage gives us a bonus, I believe, to attack. There you go. Attack, damage, and critical chance, which is awesome, and it's augmented by the rogue's cunning. So then I started pumping a lot of points into cunning, so that way the bonuses would get bigger. But that's typical, my typical party that I would run with throughout this playthrough of my Arcane Blood Mage. So I hope this video has been helpful, just to kind of give you an idea really how I went with the build. I loved it. It's probably been my most fun playthrough. Once things started getting going and we had better gear, we had better spells, you know, it started off a little bit slow, but yeah. But anyway, I appreciate you all watching, and I'll just see you all in the next series. All right, take care, friends. Bye-bye.